Have you ever felt like someone could read you before you even spoke, as if your silence revealed more than your words ever could? Machiavelli understood this long before anyone studied it. Power isn't always taken by force. Often, it slips away through a glance, a pause, a shift in tone. Not because you gave it, but because you leaked it. The world does not need to break you if it can predict you. In this video, we'll uncover the 3 subtle emotions that silently betray your strength. Stay with me. What you learn next may change how the world sees you forever. 1. Neutralize eagerness to protect your power. Eagerness is not strength. It is not noble hunger or disciplined ambition. It is exposure. It is the silent confession that you desire something so deeply. You are willing to lean forward before being invited. In that act alone, you surrender leverage, because eagerness whispers to the other, "You have something I need," and that whisper, though unspoken, shifts the balance of power. This is why those who appear too available, too accommodating, too impressed, are rarely respected, whether in an interview, a conversation, or a relationship. When you rush to prove your worth, you quietly admit you have none. The Stoics would remind us, desire, when untamed, is the beginning of dependence. And dependence makes you movable by forces outside your control. That is not power. That is vulnerability dressed in politeness. Imagine this. You're in a meeting. You nod before the question is complete. You laugh too quickly. You offer praise that has not been earned. You text again because they didn't reply. You arrive too early. These are not small habits. They are visible signals of inward imbalance. True strength is not in suppressing desire, but in mastering its display. Power belongs to the one who does not reveal need. The Stoic doesn't chase impressions or affirmation. He observes, he waits, he speaks deliberately. He chooses restraint because he understands that silence is not absence, it is positioning. So train yourself to pause. Let your words arrive after thought. Let your presence suggest fullness, not hunger, not because you have everything, but because you are not ruled by wanting. And when you no longer need to be chosen, you become the one who is quietly considered. 2. Eliminate conflicted admiration to guard your inner fortress. There is a silent fracture that betrays even the strongest posture. It is not hatred, it is not envy, it is something far more subtle and corrosive. It is conflicted admiration. On the surface, it looks like respect, but beneath it lies comparison. A smile held too tightly, a compliment wrapped in tension. This is the look you give when you admire someone's position, but resent that it is not yours. And no matter how controlled your words may be, your energy always tells the truth. The Stoics would call this a crack in the soul's alignment, for if your values are truly your own, no one else's success should disturb them. Imagine standing beside someone you once considered an equal, but they've risen higher. You offer kind words, yet your posture shrinks. You align with them in words, but not in peace. You observe them, but not in reverence. And suddenly, they see it. That flicker, that imbalance. And in that instant, you are no longer a comrade. You are seen as a veiled opponent, because no one trusts the man who admires and resents in the same breath. That kind of split presence invites caution, not connection. Machiavelli would have eliminated this trait from his inner circle, because to revere what unsettles you is to expose your hierarchy. True presence either praises without bitterness or watches in silence, but never both. The Stoic chooses clarity. He either honors fully or detaches completely. So you must look inward. Who stirs unease behind your compliments? Who reflects a status you long for but won't admit? Erase that fracture, not by force, but by elevation. Rise in your own standard until no one's light dims yours. That is the mark of someone who can admire without submission and walk beside greatness without trembling. 3. Eradicate doubt before it speaks for you. There is an emotion more destructive than fear because it strikes before anything happens. It is not panic in the face of danger. It is something more invisible, more silent, more corrosive. It is anticipatory doubt. The Stoics would call it the quiet betrayal of your own reason. It reveals itself not in your words, but in your energy, in the moment before you speak, when your voice softens, in the way you look away when offering an idea, in the unnecessary disclaimers that litter your speech. Perhaps this won't work. I could be wrong. Just my opinion. These phrases may feel harmless, even polite, but they are a quiet confession that you have already prepared for defeat. And that confession does not go unnoticed, especially by those who watch for cracks, because weakness, even unspoken, invites challenge. Machiavelli would not tolerate this presence in his court, not because it means you're evil, but because it signals surrender. And surrender, once sensed, attracts the very tests you fear. Doubt, when revealed, becomes an invitation, not just to enemies, but to all who measure your resolve. Even in a simple conversation, when your posture bends or your eyes flicker, you are silently asking for permission. You are not offering your thoughts. You are requesting acceptance, and that alone is enough to shift the balance of influence away from you. True Stoic presence does not mean arrogance. It means stillness. It means speaking without flinch, deciding without apology, and allowing silence to work in your favor. You state your thoughts as they are, not dressed in hesitation. You walk into uncertainty with the steadiness of someone who will not collapse if tested. Because power is not the absence of risk, it is the absence of visible fracture. When you stop narrating doubt, stop preempting failure, and stop softening your conviction, you will notice something shift. The world leans in. Not because you are always right, but because you are always firm. And once you've silenced those three emotions, eagerness, conflicted admiration, and anticipatory doubt, you've taken the first step towards something far greater than self-control. You've entered the realm of strategic concealment, because now it's no longer just about what you feel, it's about what you allow others to see. And that, Machiavelli understood, is where true power begins. The discipline of emotional concealment. There is a deeper truth that both Machiavelli and the Stoics understood. You cannot always stop a feeling from rising within you. Eagerness may stir when opportunity appears. Conflicted admiration may surface when someone else reflects a path you once wished was yours. Doubt may flicker when the future is unclear. But the mastery is not in eradicating these signals from your soul. It is in concealing them from the world. This is not about being numb or indifferent. It is about becoming unreadable, because power does not belong to those who express everything they feel. It belongs to those who control what others can perceive. People are not reading your thoughts. They are reading your posture. They are listening not to your words, but to the pauses between them. They are measuring the shift in your tone when a name is mentioned, the tension in your breath when a question touches your pride, the change in your gaze when your opinion is challenged. Every hesitation, every unnecessary disclaimer, every extra explanation is not just sound, it is a signal, and signals, once detected, can be mapped. If they can map you, they can move you, and that is the beginning of control. The Stoic understands that what makes you vulnerable is not the emotion itself, but the leak. The moment it escapes into expression without discipline, you have surrendered part of your advantage. To build an impenetrable mind, you must stop broadcasting what should be guarded. Your words must be deliberate, not reactive. Your expressions must be controlled, not chaotic. Your silences must speak louder than your insecurities, because the more unpredictable you appear, the more others are forced to guess, and in that guessing, they lose energy. They tire themselves trying to place you, trying to assess your angle, your values, your motives. That is where your strength multiplies. You become the one they cannot read, and therefore the one they cannot manipulate. And when you finally silence those three leaky emotions: eagerness, conflicted admiration, and anticipatory doubt, something remarkable begins to shift. People interrupt you less. They listen more carefully. They choose their words with greater caution. Not because you have raised your voice, but because you have withdrawn their access. You have stopped being an open book. And, in return, they begin to see you not just as present, but as significant. This is the art of concealment Machiavelli valued. Not the hiding of your identity, but the careful concealment of your vulnerabilities. Not with walls of stone, but with walls of behavior. A pause where others rush to answer. A composed gaze where others seek validation. A nod of consideration instead of an immediate agreement. You no longer smile to ease tension. You let tension work for you. You no longer explain to be understood. You let others wrestle with their misunderstanding. And in that stillness, you rise, not through aggression, but through restraint. You become unshakable, not because you are hardened, but because you are unreadable. To be truly dangerous is not to be hidden. It is to be seen clearly and still not be understood. That is what unsettles others. That is what makes them cautious around you. You do not feed the instinct in them to control you because you leave them nothing to grasp. The Stoic does not shout his strength. He does not demand to be seen. He becomes a presence that cannot be ignored. This does not mean you erase your humanity. It means you learn to choose when and how you reveal it. You move from reaction to response, from exposure to strategy. Every silence becomes a signal. Every look a choice. Every word a form of control. And when you live this way, not to deceive, but to protect, you become something rare, not emotionally detached, but emotionally composed, not withholding out of fear, but out of mastery. And that mastery radiates. It tells the world you cannot be shaken by noise, provoked by pressure, or defined by their assumptions. You are no longer waiting to be understood. You are waiting to be earned. Master stillness as a weapon. When someone praises you, do not chase the compliment. Nod once, not because you crave approval, but because you do not need it. When someone insults you, resist the impulse to explain or defend. Let them speak into the silence. Let their words echo into their own insecurity. When someone brags beside you, remain still. That stillness is sharper than any rebuttal. It unsettles, because in a world conditioned to react, the one who does not is feared. The moment you abandon the reflex to prove, to clarify, to counter, you stop playing their game. You rise above it. You step into a higher order of presence, a presence built on discipline, not approval. And that presence radiates strength not through noise, but through absence. People can feel it. They sense that you cannot be baited. They cannot draw you into their frame. So they orbit you, not because they fear you, but because your silence forces them to confront themselves. Machiavelli would have called this the beginning of sovereign influence. You are no longer a seeker of power. You are the source of it, and you no longer need to display your strength. Your restraint becomes the evidence. The blueprint to break you is gone, because those three emotions that used to expose you, eagerness, conflicted admiration, anticipatory doubt, have been locked away. No signal leaks, no weakness shows. You are still human, you still feel, but you no longer grant others the privilege of knowing what direction to push. That makes you unnerving, and unnerving is good. It forces caution. People tread carefully around you. They plan more thoroughly. They speak more precisely. And in that slow space, they create around your stillness. you gain something priceless. Time. Time to read, to assess, to decide who deserves access, who does not. Because once your mind becomes impenetrable, you begin to see who attempts to breach it. Not through confrontation, but through subtle maneuvers, through praise, flattery, competition, veiled criticism, the passive shifts that seek to draw you into self-disclosure. But none of it works, because you no longer offer handles for manipulation. You do not justify your decisions. You do not explain your detachment. You do not speak opinions until the room has revealed its true shape. And when you do speak, your words land with sharp finality. You speak not to entertain. You speak to direct. And that clarity draws lines. It commands more than attention. It commands alignment. Machiavelli once warned that the man who reveals his thoughts too easily becomes ruled by those who understand him better than he understands himself. The Stoics would agree. The more you reveal, the more you invite interpretation. And interpretation opens the door to control. True discipline is in choosing what to reveal, when to reveal it, and who deserves the truth. Most people, in the name of honesty, offer their emotions freely. I feel off today. I'm nervous. I just wanted to share. But this is not honesty. It is self-sabotage dressed as openness. It is the surrender of mystery, and mystery is half of influence. The wise man learns to operate under pressure without altering his pace. His face remains unmoved, his tone unshaken, his rhythm steady. This is rare, and rarity becomes status, because it is not power that intimidates. It is composure under pressure. When others lose form, you remain constant, and the more constant you become, the more others respect your presence, not because you force them to, but because they sense that access to you must be earned. You no longer announce your doubt. You no longer express your cravings. You no longer let others see the workings of your soul before you understand theirs. You have stopped bleeding power into every interaction, and in doing so, you have started to conserve it. And when power is conserved, it sharpens. Your words carry more weight. Your silences become more decisive. People begin to choose their words more carefully around you, not because you have demanded it, but because you have trained them through restraint. You have built a frame that doesn't respond to noise. It only responds to clarity. And that is where Machiavelli's insight becomes timeless. He did not advocate cruelty. He advocated strategy. He did not say emotion was weakness. He said uncontrolled emotion was the lever of weakness. So you do not kill your emotion. You delay its appearance. You refine its purpose. You use it as a tool, not a burden. You may still feel desire, but you do not show it. You may still feel admiration, but it never spills into envy. You may still feel doubt, but it never surfaces until tested. This is the essence of an impenetrable mind. You are alive, you feel deeply, but to the outside world, there is no leak, no signal, no visible crack to exploit. And now something extraordinary begins to unfold. People cannot calculate you. They try. They analyze your pauses, your stillness, your gaze. They search for patterns. But the more they try to decode you, the more uncertain they become. And uncertainty breeds hesitation. And while they hesitate, you decide. While they guess, you act. While they try to predict your next move, you are already 3 steps ahead, having made it. This is the architecture of power. It is not loud. It is not chaotic. It is built silently in the space between what you feel and what you reveal. It is the refusal to flinch, the decision to let your presence speak before your words do. And it is this presence that unsettles the loudest person in the room. Because the most dangerous man is not the one shouting. It is the one who stands in the fire and does not blink. This is the posture of rulers. of those who do not bend to the chaos. They bend the chaos to their rhythm. But do not confuse this discipline for ease. It comes with a cost. You will lose people, those who demand immediate access to your thoughts, those who need constant reassurance, those who crave connection built on exposure. They will call you distant, cold, arrogant. Let them. Let them label what they cannot reach, because their connection was never about understanding you. It was about consuming you. You are not here to be understood by everyone. You are here to build, and building demands energy, focus, and above all, silence. You rise without declaring it. You move without explaining it. You withhold not to isolate, but to sharpen. And those who once demanded your emotional availability will either fall away or evolve. They will learn to respect your restraint, or they will be replaced by those who do, because a mind like this is not for everyone. It is not adored, it is respected. And respect, unlike attention, is not loud, it endures. Become a presence they cannot decipher. There comes a moment, after silence has become your natural rhythm, when something begins to shift. People start looking at you differently, not with casual interest, but with caution, because they cannot define you. They cannot trace your thoughts or anticipate your moves. You become a mirror, not of flattery, but of reflection. Your stillness forces them to confront their own noise. You do not challenge them openly. You do not assert yourself loudly. But your unreadability reveals what they are leaking, and they hate it, not because you did something wrong, but because you no longer give them anything to cling to. This is where true presence begins, not when you speak, but when your silence starts to shape the room around you. Your presence no longer asks for attention, it commands it, not through force, but through restraint, not through charisma, but through the absence of emotional access. You no longer offer yourself freely. You make others earn entry, and in that shift, the balance reverses. They begin to seek your reaction, your approval, your attention, and in seeking it, they become cautious, restrained, and alert. That is power. Machiavelli understood that influence does not grow from being loved. It grows from being considered dangerous. Not in the sense of violence, but in the sense of being unreadable, precise, and immune to emotional bait. When people try to provoke you and nothing lands, they start recalibrating. Your restraint forces them to adjust. You are no longer a participant. You are the atmosphere. You become the force that others work around, and forces are not persuaded. They are respected. The three emotions you once revealed, eagerness, conflicted admiration, and anticipatory doubt, were not your downfall because you felt them. They became problems because you exposed them at the wrong time, to the wrong people, in the wrong way. You gave others a map to your inner world. But now, that map no longer exists. You don't even show them the gate. They have no way in, and something deeper happens. You start to see how often you betrayed your own strength, how many times you over-explained when silence would have said more, how often you softened your words to be accepted, lowered your gaze to be liked, dulled your tone to be non-threatening. You tried to be relatable, but in doing so, you gave away what made you exceptional. You tried to be understood, and in that effort, you diluted the mystery that commands respect. But that version of you is now behind you. Now, every word you speak is chosen. Every pause is purposeful. Every silence is a statement. You no longer fill the empty spaces just to ease the tension. You let the tension do its work. You do not lower your intensity to make others comfortable. You embody the discipline of one who no longer needs to be explained, only respected, and that unsettles people. They will watch your face for shifts. They will test your patience just to see if they can reach your edge. They will speak more when you say less, trying to extract some emotional signal they can interpret. But every second you remain still, they begin to realize they are not in control. They are not reading you. They are revealing themselves. This is where you become dangerous, not because you wield threats, but because your presence is beyond reach. You no longer react to praise. You do not shrink from rejection. Your energy is no longer a response to others. It moves by your command. It is stable, centered, and silent. And nothing disorients a person more than facing someone they cannot influence. But they will try. They will bait you with flattery. They will open up emotionally, hoping you will mirror their vulnerability. They will test you with guilt, with provocation, with silence. Do not give them what they seek. Let the bait rot. Let the silence stretch. Let the tension swell until it breaks their posture, not yours. Because when someone pushes and finds no soft spot, they begin to imagine you have no limits, and that belief shifts their behavior. Not because you threatened them, but because they no longer trust their ability to move you. That is power. Not brute strength, not dramatic gestures, but the slow, quiet erosion of their confidence in controlling you. And once that control is lost, respect enters. Not the kind earned through charm or agreement, but the kind that comes when others recognize they are in the presence of something they cannot define. You no longer need their applause. You no longer seek their validation. You are not performing. You are not persuading. You are simply present, fully, deeply, silently. You have moved beyond charm. You have built something unshakable. You have become presence itself. And once that final layer falls into place, when your emotions no longer spill into your speech, when your energy cannot be shifted by noise, when your silence speaks with more clarity than words, you cross a threshold. You are no longer just another person in the room. You become something that must be considered, something that cannot be predicted, something that makes others pause before they speak, adjust before they act, and think before they assume. You become a presence, felt before spoken, measured before engaged, respected before explained. That is the final level of mastery, not to understand power, but to embody it. A mind that does not declare its strength, yet radiates it. A presence that does not demand respect, yet receives it without question. Because unreadability is unbreakable, and what cannot be read cannot be anticipated. What cannot be anticipated cannot be controlled. This is where true dominance begins, quietly, strategically, permanently. If this resonated with you, consider subscribing. Let your silence grow stronger. Stay unreadable. A new lesson is coming.